I've been treated so poorly. My people have been treated so poorly. We want to matter. We want to live.
Right now, we're in a time where we're fighting. And the hate comes out on one side, the hate comes out on the other side.
But we have to keep it going. We can't stop now. We can't stop until there's real measurable change.
We're scared to talk about it. We're scared to deal with it. I mean, if you're gonna be scared to deal with it, there ain't nothing gonna get done.
Hello, I'm Melanie Townsend, and you are watching Voice for the Voiceless Conversations with the Mayor special. Tonight, we're sitting down with Wichita Falls Mayor Stephen Santayana, who's currently up for re-election, to talk about real issues happening within our community. But before we get to that, I want to talk about what our digital series, Voice for the Voiceless, is all about. Now, it's no secret that we are living in unprecedented times right now. From a global pandemic to raging wildfires to racially motivated protests to police brutality. The unrest we're seeing in 2020 has created division amongst all of us, and our goal with VFTV is to bring us back together through conversation and perspective. Join us as we talk about racism and discrimination within our community, current events that have affected us, and what our hope is for a brighter future. So I think people want to know more about who you are as a person, because of course we see you in the official capacity, but we want to know more about who Stephen Santayana is.
Yeah, so born here in Wichita Falls. I spent my first couple years in Wichita Falls. My family ended up moving overseas for a couple years. So we traveled overseas. I lived in Saudi Arabia. A lot of people don't know that about me, but we lived in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. Came back to the States, lived back here in Wichita Falls up until about third grade. And in third grade, my parents built a house between Wichita Falls and Holiday. I grew up out in the country, did all my high school years out there. A little bit different, you know, Holiday at the time was an all-white school. So as a Hispanic family, we kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. Did my college education here locally, and been in Wichita Falls ever since. What's
it been like to be mayor for the last 4 years?
You know, it's been great. It's probably one of the most challenging things I ever did in my life. I've always on community boards. As soon as I got out of college, it's one of the first things I wanted to do was join a community board. You know, running for a councilship wasn't something that was on my radar at all. You know, early 30s, I always thought of council members as a distinguished, you know, 60, 70-year-old men that ran our city. I never thought of myself, you know, in my early 30s being able to do something like that.
What are the biggest glaring problems you think Wichita Falls has nowadays?
Right now, in the midst of COVID, that's probably the biggest challenge that we have. When COVID hit, that's 18-hour days, 7 days a week, trying to navigate through that in the sense of the health of the community is one part. You know, we're constant, I'm still worried. I mean, even today, I'm still worried about the health of the community. And we have great people out there that are doing great things. And it's not just, a lot of times people look to the mayor or to the county judge. It's not us. I mean, we have a ton of community members that have come around. My responsibility lies with the health of the community and also, you know, the economic portion of that. What is that going to do to our budget?
Racial inequality has become a big topic of discussion. And of course, we've seen a lot of BLM protests here. Over the summer, we had, you know, 2 major ones, and you were also part of them as well. So talk about being a part and seeing these protests firsthand. And I mean, you even spoke during one.
You know, a lot of times I tell my fellow counselors, or even when I'm giving speeches, sometimes I feel like I lead with blinders on. And when I say that is a lot of times we're focused on a budget, we're focused on policy. We sometimes don't see what's going around in our community. I used to say, you know, we weren't a hotbed of racial tension here in Wichita Falls. With that being said, in our community, it's sometimes reflective of what happens out there in the United States. You know, being here in the Deep South, being how I was raised. I'm a Hispanic that went to an all-white school that, you know, first elected minority mayor of Wichita Falls. A lot of times I don't think about that. I don't think about that because I'm focused on what's ahead of me. But it seems to me in these, let's say the last year or so, all the things that have come to light in our nation are somehow being reflected here in Wichita Falls. What does that do for the mayor position, for the city council, or for any city government? It kind of puts us on alert. There are other issues in Wichita Falls that are just as important to Wichitans that aren't exactly related to public policy.
Okay. So now that we talked about that just briefly, I do want you to watch a clip of when I asked the people that I talked to about what discrimination looks like to them.
I do believe that there is a strain of prejudice and discrimination against people of color, against people who speak different languages, against people based on sexual orientation, gender identity. All of those things are alive and well in Wichita Falls. And the bulk of people, though, that I have come in contact with are at the very least tolerant and polite. The challenge to politeness is that there is a line that can be crossed in which you become dishonest.
Oh yeah. Wichita Falls. It's America. What you mean? That's gonna happen. You know what I mean? It's gonna happen. My kids gonna be caught. You know what I mean? They probably already been caught. You know what I mean? Like, their kids probably gonna be caught. You know what I mean? Because that's just how it is. It's America. You know what I mean?
We stay on the east side, or we stay in certain groups because they're African American based versus branching out. And I feel like it's because of the negative connotation that has existed in Wichita Falls, the racism that has genuinely existed in Wichita Falls. African Americans feel like in certain groups, in certain areas, they aren't welcome.
Moving back here, it was, I think, 8th grade, someone called me a porch monkey. I had no idea what that was. And so me being innocent old me, like, oh my God, like, best white friend, like, what is that? And they're like, oh, like, you know, like, they would say, like, black people sit on porches because they have nothing to do, they don't have a job, they're like waiting on a job, and then they're called porch monkeys. So I was like, oh.
Someone broke into my garage and they spray painted this anti-Semitic graffiti in my garage, the swastika with a racial slur.
Racism exists in Wichita Falls today, even moving out here. I'm the only one, to my knowledge, that looks like me in my neighborhood and opening up my business. My neighbors was against it and let me know by sending me a restraining order just on my business.
I ask my white friends all the time, do you think about how you're gonna wear your hair every day? And they look at me like, no. You don't think twice about how you have to wear your hair. You don't think twice about what you wear. You don't think twice about what you say, how you act, what you put on your social media. I think about those things every single day.
When it seems as though people think you're going to steal or take something, that's racism. That is racism. Whether you have a PhD or no D at all, that's racism. Racism, for example, we said we don't have racism. Racism is when you confront the police and they call you a boy, a girl. That's racism.
I've been treated wrongly because of the color of my skin. Of course we're never going to have a time where people will stop killing each other. They're going to stop stealing from each other. Racism will never go away.
No, Wichita Falls can be unbelievably cold and racist, but it can also have a good side.
It really took me growing up and moving out and partially realizing I was gay to start stepping away from those ideals that I was raised with. And now it's just sickening.
What I told my son the other day, my middle son, is you don't understand. You're in the fight of your life